Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Inside Boxing Weekly. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster, and right now I want to welcome in the UBA Intercontinental Silver Bantamweight Champion, Jeremiah Preisser.
Oh, yes. Excited to be on. Always ready to defend my title. Let's talk some boxing, Mike.
All right. We actually had some great fights. We had, 3 great fights, and then we had 1 great knockout. We'll start with the knockout. Mikey Garcia looks stronger than ever, knocking out Dejan Zlaticanin in the 3rd round. And I was really worried for Zlaticanin when he went down because he got hit.
Oh, yeah, he got clocked. I mean, that was a devastating knockout. I mean, Mikey Garcia looks fantastic the whole way. I mean, his jab was just on point. I mean, it seemed like he couldn't miss. But he just had a perfect game plan against the smaller Zlaticanin, boxed fantastically. He looks like the best lightweight in the world, in my opinion. I'd love to see him fight a guy like Jorge Linares. But, yeah, when he landed that right hand against the ropes and he went down for a few minutes, it was scary, scary stuff. But Garcia looks excellent. I mean, I would love to see him.
Zlaticanin was completely out.
Oh, yeah, gone. He was gone. It was one of those scary knockouts, and but I haven't heard anything post-fight that would indicate that he's in serious trouble. So I'm glad to hear that. But Garcia, again, he looked fantastic.
So where do you think Garcia goes from here?
I think he's probably better off at 140 pounds or at 135 pounds, even though since he's got a lot of options. I mean, he's a marketable guy. He's well-known. He's trained by his brother, Robert Garcia. I think he can go a number of different ways. If I was him, if I was managing him, I would encourage him to fight the other guys at 135. 135, it's a decent weight class. It isn't anything special. But I'm a big Jorge Linares fan, and I think pitting these two together would be fantastic. Linares isn't quite as good as he used to be. But in terms of ability, I still think he's up there with some of the best.
I think Mikey Garcia would beat him.
I think he would beat him too. I just don't think that I don't think Linares has the skin or the chin to deal with Garcia at this point. But then again, Garcia isn't the most iron chin man himself. I've seen him rocked a number of times too, but it's intriguing. I think it's the best fight at 135, and I think a lot of people would like to see Lomachenko move up and fight Garcia as well.
All right, then we have what may have been my favorite fighter of the week, which was Takashi Miura with the KO in, 12th round against Miguel Roman. What was your take on that? I mean, that was a great fight, and, I mean, Roman really fought well, I thought, especially the first half of the fight, and then Miura just kind of imposed his will on him, I thought, in the second half of the fight. Yeah,
I agree with you. I mean, Roman was solid. I mean, you could see he'd been in a lot of fights. I mean, he had all sorts of experience. Miura's just bulldogged in his tenacity. He's got excellent power. I mean, I've known that for many, many years. I mean, he fought Uchiyama many, many years ago in a barn burner, and I believe dropped Uchiyama. So, I mean, and not only that, I mean, he fought Francisco Vargas, had Vargas almost gone a number of times. He's raw, but he's real fun to watch. And, I mean, he knocked Roman down a number of times, got the body shot that he landed. I can't quite remember the round now, but the body shot he landed against Roman, I thought he was finished after that.
Yeah.
But Miura just kept banging away and finally got him out of there in the last round, and I hope he fights the winner of the next fight we talk about.
Yeah, and if you don't know who won, you're about to find out. But Francisco Vargas lost to, what's his name, Burkelt? I still haven't figured that out yet. But Burkelt looked really good. I mean, technically, I think he was just superior to Vargas. And Vargas has been in a lot of wars, and he looked like he might be getting what the old-timers call shop worn. But Vargas threw over 1,000 punches. Burkelt threw almost 1,000 punches, but Burkelt landed a lot more punches than Vargas did. What do you think of the fight?
Yeah, I thought it was a good fight, just like the Miura-Roman fight. I mean, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a packed card. The only problem is they put this card on the same night as the Frampton-Santa Cruz card. If they would have just taken it 1 week before, 1 week after, I think this does pretty good ratings, and I think, you have more people talking about it. Unfortunately, it's a bit overshadowed. But it was a damn good fight, too. I mean, Vargas, I thought he tried to impose his will early on. I mean, he was throwing a lot of combinations. He landed some decent shots, but like you said, he just doesn't look prime to me. I mean, he's a young guy. I mean, the guy only has, 26 fights, but in that short time, he's taken a lot of damage, and he looks like it. I just don't think he was that sharp. I mean, maybe it was training. I don't know. But he just wasn't that sharp. And Berkelt, he seemed to walk through a lot of whatever Vargas had to offer, which was a bit surprising for me because, I didn't quite know how tough Berkelt was. I think his only loss was his stoppage loss. But Berkelt just kept taking it and kept banging away. I wasn't too impressed with Berkelt. I mean, he's pretty upright. He's there to be hit, but he bowled over Vargas, and I think they stopped it a bit too late.
I think they stopped it a couple rounds too late. I mean, I was sitting there watching with my son, and, my son always tries to be tough. So he's like 14 years old, just started boxing. But Vargas has got the cut on his eye, and I said, oh, that's cool. And then all of a sudden, you see the Q-tip, and the cut just kind of swallowed the Q-tip. And you've got half a Q-tip in his eye. And, I mean, then he didn't think it was that cool, but I think at that point, I don't know. I know Vargas has made comebacks before. He's fought in great fights, and he's come back and won. But there comes a time where you know that that's not going to happen on this day. And I think we knew that from about the 6th or 7th round on, and I don't know why they put him through it. I'm sure he'll probably fight again, but I think he's seen his better days. I think that he's probably no longer really a contender to be a champion. Don't know what your opinion is on it, but.
Yeah, I mean, I might have to see another fight to, assess exactly where he's at. But after 3 consecutive fights where he took beatings and all, that very well may be the case. But he's fun. I'll wait and see. But it doesn't look good. Unfortunately, they'll probably milk him for whatever he's got left.
Now, Berkelt, like you said, I think he can give anybody trouble just because of how tough he is. But I think his style, I don't think he'll stay undefeated for very long unless they cherry-pick his opponents.
Yeah, Berkelt, 130 is a pretty good division right now. Again, I don't put much stock in the junior/super divisions. Berkelt's got some solid competition. I mean, Orlando Salito's up there, Jason Sosa, Corrales, Walters, Mira. A lot of these guys are bangers, and Berkelt is that as well. He fights a guy like Lomachenko. I don't see him winning at all. He fights Gervonta Davis. I'd probably favor Davis as well. I mean, there are a lot of good fights to be made with his style, and that's what I like about him. But, no, there's no way he'll ever be the best in that division.
All right, that brings us to the next fight, which I think was the one everybody's looking forward to. But I'll tell you, I enjoyed the fights on HBO better than I did Santa Cruz and Frampton. But we had Leo Santa Cruz beat Carl Frampton by a majority decision, which means one of the referees was partially blind. Because, I thought that Santa Cruz won the fight. My only question is this, and, when we talked about it, you said you didn't think Santa Cruz could do anything different. But I think he did. And I think the difference in the fight was he did something different, and Frampton just did the same damn thing for 12 rounds.
Yeah, I think what happened was Santa Cruz came out with a different game plan. He's the bigger guy. And if there's one thing that was noticeably different, it was his jab. He came out and jabbed a lot more than he did in the first fight. In the first fight, he came forward and he was, trying more hard shots, and that left openings for Carl Frampton. He was able to counterpunch a bit better. But instead, Leo Santa Cruz assumed the role of a boxer, jabbed a bunch, made Frampton come to him, and counterpunched pretty well. It was almost like a role reversal there. It was a good fight. It certainly wasn't as good as the first fight. I'm hoping, I think a lot of us are hoping that a third fight gets made. It was a good fight. Not really a lot of drama. There was certainly something to be left there. But it was a good fight, and these are fights that you want and are good for the sport of boxing. I mean, two top guys in a division, their styles seem to mesh pretty well. It was a good fight. Credit to Santa Cruz. I really didn't think he had it in him. I thought he was mostly just a guy who had to overwhelm me with volume as opposed to quality. But he proved me wrong, and good for him. I'm hoping they do a third fight. Maybe it'll happen in Ireland.
Well, the only thing I didn't understand was they were singing the Ricky Hatton song for Carl Frampton in the crowd.
Oh, yeah, they do that with everybody. If you ever watch
I know, but it's the Ricky Hatton song. You can't sing that for somebody else. You got to come up with something new.
Yeah, they got to get a new.
That would be like every college football team running out to like the Notre Dame fight song or Boomer Sooner. Yeah,
no, it would certainly lose a lot of his bluster. I know every time I hear the song, I think of Ricky Hatton too.
Me too.
It doesn't have the same ring when it's with other people, but hey, it is what it is. I mean, they've got a nice little soccer culture.
Well, in defense of the British boxing fans, they're usually pretty liquored up by the time their fighter comes in. So.
Yeah, maybe they got some new tunes. They just forgot them.
Yeah, or maybe they just forgot and think everybody's Ricky Hatton. I don't know. But do you see a third fight happening, or do you think these guys are going to go away from each other for a little bit? Maybe we see the third fight down the road a little bit.
I think it's just in their best interest to get a third fight done and over with. I mean, it's not like these guys are taking a pounding. They're making off well financially. The styles mesh. They do it in Belfast, which I think would make some sense since Frampton came over here. And I've already heard talk about it on with Carl Frampton. I think it's just best to do it now. I mean, there are other Al Heyman guys.
Yeah, I mean, the Al Heyman guys are all really solid fighters. And that reminds me to bring up to the folks that on Monday's Inside Boxing Weekly show, we will have Barry Hunter on, who is the trainer for Anthony and Lamont Peterson. Also helping out Rasheed Warren before his bantamweight title fight in Toledo. I believe that's next weekend on the 10th. So everybody will have to look forward to that too. So let's go ahead, Jeremiah, and look forward to the fights coming up this week. We got Felix Verdejo against Oliver Flores. What do you see happening in that fight?
Well, I think Felix Verdejo is just too good for Flores. Flores is a solid Nicaraguan. I mean, you look at his record, his only losses are to a couple of decent fighters. But Verdejo looks, I'm definitely not going to say the second coming of Miguel Cotto. I think he has a lot to prove, before we crown him something like that. But he's well-rounded. I mean, his hands are quick. His power is good. He can box a bit. He can brawl a bit. I think he's too much for Flores. I think it's a good test at this point, a good way to get, to help him with his progression. But I think Felix Verdejo comes out on top, and I think he looks good doing so.
Yeah, I agree. And we've got another interesting fight, David Price against Christian Hammer. I don't know how good a fight it is, but it's interesting. Price, of course, very talented big man, but he has one weakness, and that's a weakness, and he can't take a punch, a weakness that I've never seen too many guys overcome. He would be like probably the Commonwealth version of Dwayne Bobbitt.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, Hammer is a solid fringe guy. I mean, he's been around a while and taken on a lot of good opponents, but he's not a one-punch knockout kind of guy, but it's not like you need to be that against David Price anyways. I'm still going to favor David Price here. I'm actually going to favor him to stop Hammer. Price was once named Prospect of the Year by Dan Rafael, and unfortunately he kind of got this wrong. Price is a good, big, talented heavyweight, and if he had a chin, I think he'd be in the top 10 hanging with some of the best guys out there. I mean, he's a good fighter. I like him.
Well, unfortunately, because of the crowds he can bring and the complexion of his skin, he'll probably be top 10 if he wins this fight.
He might be. You never know. And even if he's not, he still may get a big fight against one of the domestic guys. I mean, we've talked on numerous shows about how the British scene, it's hot right now. I mean, the British heavyweight scene is doing very well. guys like David Hay, Joshua, et cetera, et cetera. David Price, if he wins this fight, he's in the mix to fight, any one of them. I mean, Price was being tossed around as an opponent for Joshua before the Klitschko fight was announced. So
I've seen that, and I've also seen Joseph Parker mentioned a couple times a day also.
Yeah, and Parker saw it. I've also seen Parker mentioned as an opponent for Deontay Wilder, which would certainly be a step up from the guys that he's fighting, who's Gerald Washington now.
Yeah, though? Gerald Washington is a better opponent than what he was scheduled to fight, I think.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I mean, it's tough to tell. Washington, I thought he was losing to Amir Mansour before Mansour, I believe he quit with an injury. But, yeah, it certainly might be better. But still, Wilder needs to
It's still not good.
No, Wilder still needs to do better what he's doing.
Yeah, it's kind of like going on a blind date. Man, a 300-pound woman showing up but injuring her ankle before the date starts and a 250-pound woman filling in for her. It's better, but it still sucks.
Yeah, well, depends. Never mind. But, yeah, David Price, he's a good fighter. I think he wins this, and then I think he's in contention for possibly a title. I don't know. He wins here, though.
All right. Now, this fight is a huge fight in Australia, which I think may tell us the condition of Australian boxing. But we've got 43-year-old Danny Green fighting a rematch 10 years after the initial fight against 41-year-old Anthony Mundine. I think Mundine won the first fight. I don't even remember that well. It's been so long ago. Both guys are scheduled to make at least $6 million each. This is supposed to bring in $1 million of pay-per-view money. Why?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it just kind of seems like a show, I guess. I mean, you have.
But see, didn't they do something where didn't Jeff Fennick fight Azuma Nelson for like a third time a few years ago when I think Nelson was like 49 and Fennick was 43?
Yeah, he certainly did.
Yeah.
He certainly did. But I mean, their first fight did pretty well too. I think it brought in like $10 million or something. And
they're both solid fighters.
Yeah. Well, and I think. And the first fight was actually it was one of the most anticipated Australian boxing matches in history, and they even thought it was going to eclipse the attendance record brought in by Fennick and Azuma Nelson. So that was
Fennick and Nelson the second fight, right?
Yeah, that was in 2006.
I hope to God. Yeah, because I think that was it Melbourne, the second fight? I don't remember where the third fight was. I'd actually forgot they had a third fight, and I happened to find it on YouTube, and I started watching it, but of course I fell asleep halfway through the first round. So.
Well, now we're here over 10 years later. I mean, it just seems like a show. I'm not quite sure what the sophistic appeal is for it. I mean, they're both obviously past their prime. I mean, Anthony Mundine's been getting his ass kicked by guys like Joshua Clottey in recent years, so it's not like he's a world-ranked contender anymore. Neither is Danny Green. I liked watching both in their prime. Well, I liked watching Danny Green in his prime, but I don't even know what to think here. I mean, I don't even know what kind of shape Danny Green's in. I mean, I know he had a fight late last year against a guy named Kane Watts and came away with a decision, but I didn't catch it. I don't know what kind of shape he's in. I don't know what this fight is going to do except well financially. I don't know who wins.
Well, and in the end, that's all they're working for, I think. Which you can't blame them. There's nothing wrong with doing well financially. Right. All right, we'll go with what I think is probably the main event of this weekend. We got Chris Eubank Jr. at 23-1. Verdejo-Quinlan, who's 11-1 with 7 KOs, and he is the IBO super middleweight champion. He won that in his last fight against Daniel Geale. Does Quinlan have a shot here in your estimation?
Oh, well, my question is, does Eubank have a shot? I mean, Quinlan is amazing. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I agree. But most people are going to think the other way. But, I mean, the win over Daniel Geale is more impressive than anything Eubank's got on his record.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
the best fighter Eubank fought beat him. Was it Billy Joe Saunders?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I mean, it was a close fight. I mean, Eubank did pretty well. I mean, it took a while for him to come on.
But it's not like Billy Joe Saunders is some raging stud either. And I think Daniel Geale's a very good fighter, and maybe Geale's a little bit past his prime now, but I still think that's a good win by Quinlan.
Yeah, it is a solid win by Quinlan. I mean, a lot of people don't even seem to be aware of the fact that he beat Daniel Gill. But yeah, Quinlan, he's solid. I watched the fight with Gill. I mean, Gill does look faded. I mean, he does look like that knockout that Golovkin had over him took a little bit out of him. But I don't think Quinlan's quite as bad as people think, or at least not the American public. Quinlan's solid, but yeah, I'm going to favor Eubank Jr. here. Eubank, from everything that I've seen, and which is a number of fights, he's got a lot of natural ability. He's got good hand speed. He can hit a bit. Seems like he can take a punch. He's a good fighter. It just seems like his dad is kind of steering his career in the wrong direction right now. I mean, obviously he had a shot at Golovkin, but I'm going to favor Eubank here. I'm going to favor him by decision too. I think Quinlan's got the goods to go the distance. Could be wrong though.
All righty. Let's go to boxing news. I know one thing I saw, which I'm glad I saw, was James Kirkland got injured and had to pull out of his fight. It's somehow on pay-per-view against Miguel Cotto. Any thoughts there?
Oh, I'm absolutely heartbroken about the news. I mean, I'm devastated. I mean, Kirkland is one of my favorites. I think he would have been an all-time great middleweight had he had the right management. No, I honestly, I'm not upset by this at all. I'm glad that the fight is off. Cotto could do better. Rock Nation is going to save a lot of money by
I'll tell you
fight.
this. It's a fight I would watch if it wasn't on pay-per-view.
Yeah. If it wasn't
because
on pay-per-view,
Kirkland will show up and fight. It'll be a war, and then he'll get knocked out.
Yeah, I mean, but Kirkland, I don't think he's beaten anybody of note since, Alfredo Angulo? I mean, the guy just keeps getting payday after payday only because he's exciting, and I don't mind that so much.
Well, and now he brought Ann Wolf back training him, so maybe she run over him with that tractor or whatever it was she used to have him pull.
Yeah, her and her unorthodox training methods. Yeah, I don't care what she does. He's never going to beat guys like Canelo Alvarez. He's never going to beat guys like that. Yeah, I mean he's just, and if you listen to him talk, I mean he sounds like he's punch drunk.
Well, he probably is. He's taking a bunch of ass whoopings.
Yep, a bunch of ass whoopings. Even in some of the wins that he's gotten, he's taken some ass whoopings. So I don't care. I mean, I'd rather see Cotto fight somebody else anyways. If he's going to fight at 154, I'd rather see him fight one of the top guys. And honestly,
like a Yuri Foreman rematch.
Yeah. Oh, please. Can we get Yuri Foreman's trainer or his manager on the phone? Let's make that. No, but I mean, 154 has a lot of good fighters. I'd rather see him fight somebody else. And honestly, I think Cotto could make 147, and Juan Manuel Marquez seems to want that fight. I think that would be a pretty good fight to kind of send these guys off.
Well, I think this. I think Marquez is the better fighter, just according to how much he's got left.
Yeah. Well,
but the same can be said of Cotto also.
Yeah, I mean, Marquez, he hasn't been taking any beatings lately, and I think if he's on Memo Heredia's PED plan, I think he'll show up in shape and give Cotto a tough tassel.
All right, so if you take a shot at Marquez's character, do you have any other boxing news this week, Jeremiah?
Hey, man, I'm just calling it like I see it, okay?
All right.
I mean, there are all sorts of, boxing news going on. I've heard Shannon breaks in Fresno Kendo. The shit's going to purse bid. Pretty excited about that.
What's the purse bid? Like a trip to free gift certificate to Mickey D's, $25?
Peel off the cups and you might get a ticket.
This one time I might fight the winner of that for the heavyweight title.
Go for it, man. Go for it. I mean, it's already become a show, so you might as well throw your name into the hat.
Yeah, what the hell?
But a fight that I actually really do like, that is making headway with the negotiations is Artur Beterbiev versus Sullivan Barrera. That is apparently supposed to be for an IBF title eliminator, and that's a fight I really like.
Yeah. I know. You're the biggest Arthur Beater fan in the world, I think.
No.
Barrera, let's see, he lost to Ward, didn't he? And, he represented himself well. I mean, it wasn't like he was completely outclassed. He was just totally outclassed. But
yeah, well, Yeah, and he's a bit inexperienced. I mean, I think he didn't even have 20 fights going into that. You fight a guy like Andre Ward, who's taking on some of the best, well-schooled.
Well, Andre Ward makes guys with 50 fights look like they're in big-time inferior. So.
Oh yeah.
Because most guys are inferior to Andre Ward.
Yep, just about anybody.
But
yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say Beterbiev. Beterbiev's a hard-punching guy from Russia. Sullivan Barrera is a pretty well-schooled Cuban. I like it not only because they're good in the pros, but because it kind of conjures up the images of old, right? The big Soviet Union-Cuba rivalry in the amateurs.
Yeah. Now we just need Howard Cosell to come back and call it. But got anything else?
I mean, there are a number of things that I'm interested in. I'm still waiting on this Kell Brook Errol Spence thing.
Yeah, that's a fight I want to see. That one intrigues me.
Yes, certainly, and I'm getting mixed signals. I'm not quite sure what to think here. I mean, Eddie Hearn's like, oh well, Spence isn't a big enough fight at 147. Cotto versus Kell Brook does big business. I mean, honestly, I think most of us just want to see him fight Errol Spence. He's fighting much lesser guys for his title, so I'm hoping it goes through, but I'm not convinced of anything right now.
Yeah, especially with Cotto, because you can add some money on there. But I think Brook fighting Spence is a bigger money fight than even Cotto if you're doing it in England.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic fight, and a lot of us are just anxious to see what Errol Spence has at the top.
All right. Well, I want to remind everybody, Jeremiah's new best friend, Barry Hunter, will be with us Monday again. I know you're pumped up about that.
I am, man. Barry was one of our best guests. I mean, that's a guy that I wouldn't mind just calling and talking to. I mean, he understands the game not only on a boxer's level of the nuance of the sport, but the corruption and whatnot and the things that need to be changed. So I'm excited to have him on.
Yeah, so you can hear that Monday night on thegruelingtruth.net. I don't know. I think there are some fights. Rasheed Warden fights next weekend. I know that for the bantamweight title. We had Rasheed on this last Monday night with Barry and Lamont Peterson, who will be fighting February 18th against David Evanesian. Did I get that right?
You got it right, man. You nailed it.
I think I'm getting better at pronouncing these names. If people have been listening, it's taken me 2 years, but I'm getting this down now. I mean, I just want to say Zlatichinin all day long now because I can.
Yeah.
So now hopefully he'll win some fights so he can get back on, so maybe we can interview him. And then I can introduce him as Zlatichinin. But, all right. Any final words, Jeremiah?
No, I just want to wish, Barry Hunter, Lamont Peterson, Rasheed Warren, I want to wish them the best. Funny enough, Rasheed Warren said the WBA still hasn't given him his title, which I'm not sure how that happens. I mean, he wanted the belt months ago. But anyways, yeah, I wish them all good luck, and I'm excited to have Barry back on.
Hey, and a past guest we had on, Benny Pazienza, I finally got to see bleed for this today.
How's that?
It was actually a pretty good movie. I liked it a lot better than the Hands of Stone movie. The only place they lost me in the Pazienza movie was at the end of it when he fought Roberto Duran. They made Duran look like he was in his prime, and it didn't look like Roberto Duran. But other than that, I really enjoyed the movie. It was much better than Hands of Stone, which I found rather boring. Yeah,
no, I generally didn't get good reviews. I'll end up catching the Paz film here whenever. I'm hoping it comes on Netflix or something so I can observe it. Not sure, because I've heard mixed reviews with that one too, so I'm not quite sure.
It's not a bad movie. Like I said, I thought it was really good until the end when Roberto Duran looked like he was 28 years old and bigger than what he was and blacker than what he was, and it didn't look like him. Of course, I don't know if you can get anybody to look like Roberto Duran did, but that and the fact that they made Duran Pazienza look like a lot more dramatic fight than it was. See, you can pull off like Cinderella Man making Max Baer and James J. Braddock look like a war, because most people aren't going to go back and look at the film.
Right.
But it's like, I love the movie Cinderella Man, but when you get to the Max Baer fight, it's nothing like the film I have. I mean, it was really a boring fight. I mean, there's no doubt that Baer lost to Braddock, but it wasn't the dramatic fight that they showed it to be. The story is still dramatic, though. but the fight wasn't. But you got to spruce up the fight anyways and make everything look like Rocky. But all right, so we're going to wrap it up for tonight. We'll be back Monday night with Barry Hunter, the trainer for Rasheed Warren, Lamont Peterson, Anthony Peterson. We've been promising in the future when Anthony comes back, which is supposed to be pretty soon, we'll have Anthony on too. So we definitely want to thank Headbangers Promotions for joining with us there to help get these guys on. So for Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.